Thank you very much to all of you. Any questions? Please, Jeff.
Can I reach it? Does that work? Yeah, okay. Thank you for those presentations. I thought that they were a really interesting sort of wide range, but they all connected together. But one of the things that you didn't say, and or at least I didn't detect from any of you, was about the level of study. I mean, there was a lot of discussion about ways of learning that require maturity and metacognition amongst the learners, that they had to take responsibility for their learning, they had to engage. And in my experience, a lot of that has to do with the level of maturity of the learners. And so I'd like you to comment, if you would, about the levels that you were talking about. I mean, is this on below bachelor? Is it bachelor? Is it master's? Is it doctoral? Is it higher professional training? And the extent to which you think that the approaches that you've talked about would work particularly at lower levels, which is actually, I think, the place where our biggest challenges lie.
Thanks for a great question, Jeff. We have spent quite a few years working on entry-level material for the Open University for students who might have been out of education for quite some time, people who might have left school with no qualifications, who lack confidence in their ability to study. And looking at, we did a lot of work looking at the literature around student engagement at that level in online learning, and we realised that we could make no assumptions in what we were designing. So interestingly, our entry-level modules, our access modules, don't start online. Because we make the assumption that we have to help the learners develop those skills to study online and to develop their confidence in doing that while they're studying. So we start from a book, and we start from interaction with a human being. We give the learners time to get their equipment set up and to learn how to use it. And then we start to introduce the skills gradually and to scaffold those. I think you're absolutely right to point out that there is very little discussion around level, and particularly when we're talking about MOOCs. So you get lots and lots of MOOCs that are introduction to or starting with or something like that, but you'd need like several years of studying astrophysics, or in some instances, to actually get to grips with them. So I think there is a big question mark there about how we prepare students, and the approach we've taken is one where we look to develop agency and to foster identity as a learner, as well as helping to develop those technical skills.
Okay, yeah, carrying on from the ideas of agency and learner identity, that's been crucial for us. We've experimented with levels, essentially. We've experimented with forms of kind of peer mentoring across disciplines, across cultures, and intentionally creating projects/assignments where the project itself is an exercise in learning across disciplines and cultures. So intentionally getting students from architecture, PR, acoustics, creative media, all to work together with the understanding that they are there to learn from one another's disciplinary cultures. So that's been quite kind of explicit in that from the beginning. And that's actually worked quite well. And what we have found is in each successive year that we have students that become kind of mentors and facilitators for the next year. So we've found that by, making those kind of cross-level workings explicit, that the students have really gained from that. So we've had everything from, first-year undergrads through to postgraduates all working together, and they've appreciated that experience.
I took the liberty to go back to one of my slides. My daughter is 5 years old, which means that last year she was 4, and she did a research on, well, not without quote marks, she did research on sharks. Who decided why sharks and not dolphins? Or, well, they decided themselves. So actually the syllabus was chosen by the kids, in that 4-year-olds. It was not done in the classroom. They presented the results of their research. They assessed each other. Papa, Mark did very well, but Mary did not that well. Well, that's peer assessment. And what the teacher said is that, not everyone is going to do everything about sharks. You're going to do how they eat, the other ones how they sleep, whether they sleep or not, how they swim. So I think there's a possibility. Of course, it's not exactly the same thing that I'm doing with my master's students, which was my example on e-government, but I can trace the research I did on sharks more or less in everything. They did not use a textbook. Yes, afterwards the teacher explained some of the incorrections that they incurred, not only they, but the parents too, but they incurred on the sharks. But the library, the textbook, the syllabus was really not blown up, but really open. And it was a lot of room for 4 years old to do something on sharks. And I'm sure that this year it's not about sharks because they voted, and now it's, I don't know the name of that bird, but it's a big bird that has these feathers with colors. So the thing is that I think that there's a lot of room to open up and to unfold all these institutions at any level. Of course, as master students, when I evaluate them, I see how they traced the whole structure, the whole strategy to learn. What were the references? How did they check those references? Are they plural? Are they not plural? Etc. I did not do that, or the professor didn't do that for my 4-year-old children. But I think that the idea of the design is exactly the same one, and we're seeing a lot of these things in primary school and secondary school and kindergarten. And I think that the only place we're not seeing those things is when they are the standardized exams, which are really cutting all kind of innovation. So then you prepare or you learn for the exam. So the problem is not the age, it's not the discipline, it's not many other things, it's whether or not you have to learn for an exam, which is an oxymoron, and then everything, all this stuff that we've been talking about just falls down and it's only learning for the exam. I think it's the only exception.
Yeah, I really like your question. I think it's a crucial thing, and one of my doctoral candidates just defended his dissertation. It's titled "Open Education Ecosystem," and I think it has this, like, it goes quite deep to that. Your worry is like that when we want to be inclusive, we should think the whole online environment as a possibility for self-study. How you can get involved or excited, and how you can find peers to work with on meaningful things. That I really think, I fully agree that it's a lot of things are done in a pre-education in kindergartens, but it's never too late. You may become a researcher and you can set up your research group in any age, and then you do that on your own level. My children go to kindergarten, it's a public kindergarten in Helsinki. They are set up to research group at the age of 3. Everybody is signed a research group, and they work on the research for before they go to school at 7 with certain topics. And they also set up, which is really beautiful, they have a, in the beginning of the year, they make a list of what they would like to learn, and then the teachers and the parents are together organizing the possibility. This year the 5-year-old wanted to learn how to do tattoos, so we get a tattoo artist to the kindergarten to show how it works. Well, they won't make tattoos, but we bring the artist over there to if that is their own interest to learn how it happens, we can provide it for them. So I think that's how you build this growth mind and the curiosity to study and learn. But it's not only, a lot of happens in the early age, but it's never too late, I would say. And then we need to think the whole online environment, that how there's access to libraries, how there's access to science, how there's access to open university, and become a researcher at later in your life.
Thank you. Yeah, but try to be short. But yeah, please.
I'm really struck by the idea of kind of delivering for online learning or creating environments and networks where things can happen that lead to learning taking place. And I think that's what we're starting to sort of talk about here. And I know obviously that Bonnie and Dave Cormier are so active in, you know, almost the idea of kind of rhizomatic learning, but essentially communities of interest. And that's the really powerful thing for me around online learning. So it's about the emergence of communities of interest that can work together as opposed to delivery of learning per se.
Thank you. We still have 20 minutes, or about 20 minutes for questions. Please, Alvin.
Could I just ask, I was struck by something Liz said earlier on about bringing students and tutors along with you and the challenge involved in that. I come from my university about it was from the late 19th century, I think it was established, so it's not very old and it's not very new, so it's somewhere stuck in the middle. But we do have quite traditional students, and the students are, you know, compared to, for example, probably the students you get, Ismail, perhaps even at FSR, and certainly the Open University, they probably come with, I think they come with a mindset which is not necessarily attuned to doing the things that we would expect them to do online. And actually, what we expect them to do is very much what we would expect them to do in a traditional setting. You know, they're not actually very good at coming to seek out peer help from their own student body, or coming to my office hours, that kind of thing. And the skills are very much the same. You need to engage with an online community if you're going to get all the benefits you're talking about. So my question is, the communities of interest idea is a great idea. I just wonder whether it selects certain types of people who, and it works in university, in settings that you've described, but is it a different challenge when when we're selecting students for whom it doesn't appear to be, at least, a natural mode of being?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that you made the point about the students themselves, and that's something that I think is one of the biggest barriers to so-called innovation in learning. You know, our students don't want to feel like lab rats, and it's very easy to feel like that sometimes. Yes. And with regards the kind of that digital divide and the way that it does play out when we leave things to happen by themselves, yes, I also think that does happen. So you get the students that want to collaborate, that want to connect, doing that work. I personally haven't, I mean, I haven't found the answer to this. I've tried lots of different approaches. I'm still trying different approaches. I've not found the answer just yet, but I just would like to acknowledge that the issue of kind of the inherent conservatism of the student body is actually, yes, one of the biggest barriers. I put on an event a couple of weeks ago, and it was in our big student learning space, and the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Student Experience wouldn't let us close the space down because it belongs to the students. So we had this day-long event, and it was really tricky to manage because the students wanted to get on with their work, and they wondered why there were these 60-odd academics being really noisy and talking about stuff and la la la. And then as it got towards the end of the day, it was probably about 4 p.m. and we had a closing panel session. And the students are all around the room with their backs to us, working away. But we were talking about the purpose of higher education, what it's really about, what are our concerns. And gradually the students stopped doing what they were doing and turned their chairs around. And they were listening so intently. And on this panel, we actually had 3 students, along with our external speakers. And one of the students said, look, we never realised that this was what higher education was about. Nobody's ever told us this. And I think this is one of the things that, you know, we start off when kids are 5, 6, 7 years old. Fantastic experience, example there from Timu. And we kind of educate this conservatism into them over years and years of schooling. And then they come to university and we go, right, let's do innovative stuff. Problem.
No, I have two different answers to that, the tough and the soft one. The soft one is that it's my duty as an educator to help them in this struggle to go online or to use these kind of technologies or whatever. So I really try them to make it easy for them, and I am really, or I try to be aware that people come from different mindsets, from different environments, and some people might need one hand or another hand. So this is part of my duty to help them to that. The tough one, which I said before about the Neolithic, is that if you are in astronomy, no one discusses that you have to learn relativity. So you just have to learn it. Or if you are in biology, you have to look through a microscope. You don't say, I'm done with microscopes. No, you have to. And I think it's my duty, again, not only to discuss about the discipline or the content, but about the methodologies. And I might be wrong, but I think, and I'm quite convinced, that they have to be online and they have to be able to self-manage their own learning, not during their student lifetime, but also after that. So I'm sorry, there is no option that you can opt out on doing this or that. It's part of your learning, being on Twitter. You don't like it, I will help you, and you can create an anonymous user so you don't feel exposed, or we can create lots of devices on tricks and things that you can, so you cannot feel pressed or you don't feel bad. This is on me, but what is not on you is to choose whether you will use that or not, because this is part of your learning, I think.
Yeah, all the time that people were talking, I was kind of reflecting on something similar. So when I worked in a face-to-face university, I had the great pleasure of teaching research methods to social scientists, and amongst that was teaching SPSS. And anybody who's tried to teach statistical packages for social scientists to first-year undergraduates will know that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, and that students will quite often vote with their feet. And actually, what I realised was that I was teaching it wrong. So it wasn't that I was making it inaccessible to them by the way I was delivering it. No, I'm not taking full responsibility for that, by the way in which it had always been delivered. So I think that we have a responsibility as educators to find a better way. So if you know that we know they have to learn that, and we have to find a better way of delivering it so that they can engage more effectively with it. And I actually got to a point at which I was telling people who'd failed their assessment that they'd really learned something from that. So and that failing to do something was a form of learning, because they certainly wouldn't do it again in that way. So yeah, it's very complicated, it's tough.
Know whether one of the things we have to do more courageously is really to lean back and to say, okay, let's just take the learners, take over more over of their own learning. So why not let the, it's a little bit also what you said, Ismail, why not let the undergraduates design their syllabus? And as we know that teaching the others is the best way to learn, it's the most powerful way to learn. If I have to teach others, why don't we let them design online courses? So they will have to collaborate online, they will have to design the syllabus, they will by this learn all the methodologies, all the content, all the way, and then there is, of course, the instructor, the professor, who will then correct what is wrong on the sharks, what is wrong on what is wrong and what doesn't work. But first you can go around all of this and just letting them do and guiding them to setting up their own learning.
Thank you. More questions? No, I had several questions, but as we are running out of time, sorry. No, please.
Well, no, I was just going to add that, yes, I think a big part of this is of course, the instruction to how to use this. But it's also, it has to do with, I don't quite like the word, but I can't come up with a better one for at this moment, is expectation management. Because the people have, they have expectations and they're used to a certain kind of thing. And sometimes it can be painful to learn a new way and be told that, yeah, you know, it's like, well, you're from the Neolithic era if you don't do this kind of, you know, to be, and it can be painful, but it doesn't matter. I agree with Ismail. It's just, then it just has to be calmly explained. But this is also, I don't think this is a matter of level or age or, you know, back in the day I was a teacher, and my 14-year-old student confronted me via his parents, who suddenly, because I was very much into online learning at the time already, and I had gotten rid of the school books because I figured that, you know, I can do better online. And the kid told at home that we're not studying anymore. So the parents contacted my boss, who contacted me to say that, what are you doing in your classroom? In Finland, teachers have a lot of freedom. And the parents actually came to see one of my lessons, and I showed them all the material, all the knowledge that the kid had created while working together with me and his peers. And I showed what he would have done if he had just read the textbook. And he did maybe like 12 times more, and he had learned a lot more. But his expectation of study was that you read this one chapter, then you answer these specific questions, and he really thought that he was not studying. So I had failed in expectations management, and I learned.
Thank you. I would like to ask you, well, as I said, I had several questions, but I would like to ask you, because we are running out of time, only one, and I will choose the evil one, the malefic one, because maybe I will not have another opportunity to ask you, to all of you, all the experts on online learning and universities, online universities. I remember a question that a journalist asked to the former president of my online university, the same university than Ismail, and I would like to hear your answers too. Would you recommend your children to choose an online university in front of a distance teaching, traditional university?
Okay. Of course. If I might digress a little bit just before lunch, I think that we are used to have these huge institutions created during the Industrial Revolution or the Industrial Era, which for the sake of optimization of resources, there were huge institutions that did lots of things. I mean, we have political parties that do lots of things, and parliaments that do lots of things, we have libraries that do lots of things, and we have, of course, universities which do just lots of things. They credit, they research, many things. The good thing about digitization and being able to get rid of the bounds of reality is that you can really split the tasks and make the tasks independent from the institution. So the institution doesn't make the function doesn't make the institution. You can really split them. So we should, answering your question, the terror or what frightens people about online university is that how are you going to socialize with other people? How are you going to get laid with other people if you're not meeting? Well, we can meet people outside. So I think that the answer is not can you choose from one another, is that how will you do all the things that you're supposed to do in your youth? I mean, study or learn, get laid, get drunk, all the things that everyone does. And yes, before we did that in the university, we got drunk in the grass, we smoked the grass, and don't laugh, I mean, everyone's done that, right? So I think that the thing is that if we have a strategy so that the guy doesn't become an otaku and he's closed in his room and doesn't get out, I don't think the university has to do that function anymore. Or not only the university is the only institution or place you can do that. So for me, the answer is not would you recommend, is that do you guys, or my son, my daughter, Muriel, do you have a strategy of what you're going to do from your 18th anniversary to your 25th anniversary? How are you going to get with people? Are you going to do sports? Are you going to meet guys? Are you going to learn something? If she has a strategy and the university is only one of the places that she can go, for me it's okay. If she does not, I will just take her to the university and say, hey guys, take care of her. She's unable to do anything else than just take the train and go to your campus. And I think that is the question. Are you able to do a rational choice and a rational plan for your next 3, 4, 5 years? And I think that this is not the duty of the university, it's the duty of the parents. And it's my duty to accompany her during her youthhood, or youth, what's the name, that she's able to make that choice without just following the railroad?
Well, first of all, I inhaled as well, Ishmael. No, I didn't. Actually, I think about higher education much more as a journey, as a lifelong journey. I don't think we're ever going to be able to go back to that model of 3 years after you've left school, or 4 years, get a degree, and then you go into the workplace and that's it. We're all going to live longer. We're going to have multiple careers in our lifetime, multiple changes of direction as the world around us changes, and we're going to have to learn continuously. So I don't think a single experience is on the cards for people from now on. I've attended 4 different universities and had 4 very different experiences, and I'm glad that I've had all of those. And I think that there is no choice. There is no choice between doing this or doing that. For some people, as Ishmael said, they can't attend a face-to-face university, and then the online experience is the only choice they have. For some students, studying part-time is the only option that's available to them. And for others, no access to study at all is still a possibility. So I think there's no just one answer.
Well, I want to make a very similar point than what you made, that we need to look at the possibilities and the access and providing learners to have the choice. I'm kind of disagreed to the vision that going to the university, like physically, is this all-encompassing experience for young people that then they don't do anything else besides being at the university. I don't think that this is what the traditional university is about. I mean, if you look at your own experience, I guess that during your years at universities, you were going to the universities, but you were also many other things. So I don't think that the traditional model means necessarily something that is contradicting than the online model would allow more. I think that it's more about what kind of conditions you are in, if you need to work because you need to sustain yourself, and this is not compatible. I mean, mixed experience between online and offline, I think that's totally something to be seen case by case as well.
I mean, I think we all tend to have fixed in our idea, in our heads, this idea that you go to a university, and therefore in a sense that there is a choice. But actually, I don't know whether the model of the university that we've had for a while, but not for a terribly long time in truth, the one that we actually live in now, whether that is actually durable, or even whether the idea of degrees as we look at them are actually durable in a longer term sense. And so therefore I think that ideally, and it's too late for my children now, but actually it would apply to my grandchildren, that actually I would say, actually you do all of the options. And what you don't do is you don't go to a university that has exclusivity and says, you must come only to us and study only with us, which is rather like my own university. And actually you would choose one that said, well, hey, come to study with us, and you can live here in this attractive or otherwise city, but you can also take courses online and from other universities, and you can also travel to other universities in other parts of the world. And if I could find a university like that for them, then I would say you do that, you do all of it. And this idea of exclusivity, that you can only do one thing and you have to choose for it, I think is actually dead and gone. But there again, it may be that the bachelor degree as we have it is also dead and gone, really.
And then finally, fantastic, Jeff. I would like to, I completely agree with everything you just said. I've got a 14-month-old daughter, so these kinds of decisions are maybe 18 years away for me. But again, I guess the question itself implies this idea of a university education, and what does that suggest in terms of accreditation and what we value. So going back even further from some of the points that Jeff made then, I think the only thing that I am sure about at this moment is that I want my daughter to have a passion for learning and not lose that passion for learning. And I don't really care where she goes. But the one thing I do care about is that the formal education system as it stands doesn't sort of stamp on her curiosity or innate love of learning.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, if I may. Actually, you just told it tacitly, but I think that more concerned that whether my daughter goes to the university or not is whether the university will be relevant in 50 years. So I think that would be my own concern. And actually, that is my concern. I think there's a role for the university, but I don't know which one. And I'm sure that the role is not making compulsory to go to university to have an accreditation or a title, because that won't be the case. I'm pretty sure that in 50 years, titles or degrees of the university will be worth quite different, and what the value added by university will be measured in other things. I don't know which ones, but to me, my concern is not whether my daughter has to go to this or that university, but whether the university will make sense in 50 years. And I think there's an urgency to address this point.
Thank you very much. You might be hungry, yeah, and this is Italy, so no jokes. Sorry, we can stop now and continue after lunch. Thank you very much.